Good evening, everyone. We're here for a city council meeting. I hope you're here for city council meeting also. The city council meeting of December 5th, 2016. We'll start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom. Here. Drew. Here. Solomon. Here. Doyle. Here. Estes. Here. Scott. Here. Laurenti. Here. Wright. Here. Modrick. Here. Roberts. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next will be our invocation, and we'll have our invocation from Pastor Roy Roberts, and we'll follow the invocation with the Pledge of Allegiance. And of course, you're invited to participate, but not required. Mr. Roberts.
Father, we just want to come before you tonight, and we thank you for these men and women who are willing to serve our community. And Father, I thank you for their lives and their willingness to serve in this way. And Father, I pray for the many decisions that they have to make tonight and at other times. Father, I pray that you would guide them by your Spirit. That, Lord God, that you would give them wisdom and insight. And Father, I pray that there would be a spirit of unity within the council and, Father, among the people here tonight. That, Lord God, that the decisions that are made, Father, would be according to your will and purpose and plan for our community. And Father, we just love you and we thank you so much. We just ask these things in your precious name, Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. To the adoption of the agenda, we'll go to Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of most of our gallery is here for item number 45, the Vision Fund, I would make a motion we move 45 up to item 1A.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Jerry Wright. Want to speak on that?
Please.
We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that we've got the right number. Did I hear Alderman Estes say 45? Because 45,
49.
okay, 49? 49. That's okay.
So the motion is to move item 49 to item 1A. So all in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Oh, now. Okay, and now motion to adopt the agenda, the new agenda by Amanda Scott and seconded by Steve Laurenti. All in favor of that motion say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're going to take a minute and honor our soon-to-be retired fire chief, Mike Multivern, if you could join me up front. Well, it's a great honor to recognize someone who has given the majority of their life to public service. And tonight we're honoring Mike Multivern, our fire chief, after 26 years of dedicated service to the city. But before he worked for the city, while he was going to college, Mike was part of the Spearfish Volunteer Fire Department from 1988 to 1990. During the same time, he was a part-time firefighter with the U.S. Forest Service. And then after that, he sent himself to a private fire academy and then joined the Rapid City Fire Department in 1990. He was a firefighter medic for 8 years. He was then promoted to the lieutenant and served in the education section for 3 years. He then moved on to fire operations, where he was a lieutenant on a fire crew for 4 years. He was then promoted to captain and moved to the station out at the airport to provide service out there. And he was out there for 5 years. In 2009, he was promoted to assistant chief, and the following year, in 2010, he was promoted to fire chief. In his free time along the way, he was also employed part-time at the private ambulance service, AMR ambulance service, for 12 years. He was part of the hazardous materials team here in Rapid City. He also participated as a wildland firefighter, and he is a National Fire Academy Executive Fire Officer graduate. So that's quite a resume, and he's had quite a career here. And I've known Mike for most of those years and served with him as a fellow department head. And I consider Mike a friend as well as a co-worker, but specifically somebody who's dedicated to public service. And 26 years in one place in public service. So there's a lot to be proud of. Mike, we're going to miss you. Mike's going to join the fire department in Bozeman, Montana. It has nothing to do with him enjoying skiing or the outdoors or anything of that. It's totally work-related, I understand. And so we wish him the best. And we have this customary certificate commemorating his retirement, and then also another little gift. So while you're giving a speech, I'll get your other gift here. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mayor. So I don't have much for a speech, which is uncharacteristic of me, as most of these people will attest, but out of just a show of humility, I would just tell you that I have had an outstanding career with the city. I've been blessed by all the opportunities that this community and the city and the fire department has given me over the years, and I've come to know and work alongside of some of the most wonderful people in this town that work for the fire department. I can tell you, when I'm long gone, these men and women will continue to serve you in the utmost of professionalism and bravery. They are truly some of the best people, and I just want to thank everybody in the community, and especially the elected officials, including the mayor and all the other city employees that I've had the opportunity to serve alongside. It's really been, again, a tremendous honor of mine to serve Rapid City. Thank you.
As a past employee of the city of Rapid City, I just wanted to share with you that I served with Mike also in landfill fires and meth debris cleanups and on and on and on in many events, and I was truly impressed by his leadership and his courage, and it's a privilege and honor to serve with you, Michael. But I think one of the more significant things since I've been on the council was his innovative work in getting the wildland interface program going with the city, where we've expended some money and got some money from grants and worked to minimize the potential damage that was out there lingering on our perimeters and our forested areas. And Mike's leadership helped minimize the risks to this community and probably saved hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of homes. For that, I want to thank you.
So I know how wall plaques go, and if you work around here long enough, you have a box full of them somewhere, but this one's extra cool. So we're hoping that you'll display this one in Bozeman. So this is the Spirit of Service Award presented to Mike Maltaverne, Fire Chief, for 26 years of dedicated service to the Rapid City Fire Department and our community. Okay, next we're on to item 1A, which is 2017 Vision Fund recommendations presented by the Citizen Committee. And the recommendation at Legal Finance Committee was to take to the council without recommendation. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to turn it over to the Vision Committee Chairman, Mr. George Graspy. He'll make a presentation. After the presentation, he'll remain to answer any questions from the council. We'll start a council discussion about the Vision Fund process. Remember that we'll have some time limits. I hope that we'll choose our words wisely and get everything we need to say in 5 minutes apiece. And we have a few speaker request forms also. So how about we'll take the speaker request forms right after Mr. Graspy's presentation. Okay, the floor is yours.
To our Honorable Mayor Steve Allender, our Honorable Rapid City Council members, and the Honorable citizens of Rapid City. My name is George Graspy, and I'm the chairman of the 2017 Vision Fund Citizen Committee. I'll break this presentation down into 4 parts. First, I'll introduce the committee members. Second, I'll briefly discuss the context, the operating context we worked within. Third, I'll talk about the work that we did in order to reach our recommendations. And then fourth, I'll discuss as briefly as possible why we believe the 10 recommendations we've made have merit. So first, I'd like to introduce our committee members. There are 9 of us. And if I would ask if you would please stand. First is Don Connor. Don has a background in business management, and I'll also discuss their backgrounds a little bit. Thank you, Don. We have Bob Demersman. Thank you, Bob. He has a background in economic development. I'm going alphabetically. Next is Heather Forney. Heather has a background in finance. Thank you, Heather. Next is Tim Johnson. Tim has a background in hospitality. Thank you, Tim. Next is Jolynn Little Wounded. And she has a background in culture and arts. Thank you, Jolynn. Next is Katie Kinnan. Katie has a background in secondary education. Thanks, Katie. And we have Megan Rader Shop. She's the vice chairman, so her background's in mental health and higher education. Thank you. My background's in law and community service. We recommend funding 10 of the 25 project applicants. With all due respect, we cannot recommend funding all projects. First, the reality and context of our challenge was that the applications sought millions upon millions of dollars, far in excess of the $6.5 million that we had. So right off the bat, we understood that there was no way we could please and accommodate everyone. We had limits, so we needed to do very serious, thorough work and analysis. Also, we believed, as long as we looked at the goals of Rapid City in terms of development, that essentially the money, that no one had a proprietary interest in the money. That is, there was no one that was given a right to come in here and say, this is ours, this belongs to us. So that gave us a little freedom to analyze everything. Second, I'll move into our analysis. Our recommendation is unanimous. But before we reached a unanimous funding recommendation, we received, reviewed, and considered the following: 25 complete written applications, and we're talking massive amount of information. We sent out a follow-up committee letter seeking additional information that was sent to all applicants, and this kind of opened the gates so that we received a continuous influx of information in emails, correspondence, and brochures from various applicants, which we also reviewed. Many of the committee members attended site tours. We did some of this in groups or individually, and we personally inspected many of the project locations. All 25 applicants were invited and scheduled to present in person their project during public hearings in October. A total of 24 of the 25 applicants responded and presented over a span of 8 hours and 2 days. After each presentation, we asked questions. We have minutes of all this. The minutes were prepared, thanks to Lindsay, and we also reviewed those after we'd done that work. We received some input from Rapid City Parks and Recreation in terms of project coordination with their department. We received a working model recommendation provided by Dr. Albert Linderman. He's with the Rapid City Collective Impact, which is a community-supported initiative with a long-term commitment to a common agenda for solving social problems in Rapid City and coordinating funding efforts. We reviewed all the information in the minutes. We scheduled and attended 9 1.5 to 2 hour committee working sessions at City Hall. So individually and collectively, each committee member personally spent, just personally themselves, about 50 hours of time going over everything. So we've got about 450 hours of community service that we brought to bear on our recommendation. Many funding requests sought large sums. We saw no benefit in only minimally meeting a small percentage. We looked at the historical analysis of the fund and past funding issues, and over a period of time the cost escalated, projects didn't get done. So we wanted to focus on something that would come into reality on 2017, and also enough money so that they are fully funded so that the project could go ahead as they planned. And so those were additional factors that we considered. Our options varied, but essentially we could fully fund a couple of large projects and decline the overwhelming majority. On the other hand, we could try to fully fund as many different projects and make it as a diverse a recommendation as possible. We had no idea where we'd end up. Our pathway eventually led to a recommendation to fund 10 projects instead of just a couple. So out of the 24 applicants that were seriously considered, we have recommended funding for 40%, which is a very significant percentage when you're dealing with a limited amount of money and a huge amount of interest. The 9 committee members did not take this challenge lightly. Each project received thorough individual attention, evaluation, and discussion. We covered everything. During our working sessions, everything was considered. The individual committee members came to the meetings. They were prepared, committed, truly vocal and passionate about their differing opinions and recommendations, and there were many different opinions. Fortunately, everyone was respectful and polite. We worked with great civility, and we reached a consensus in the face of a very challenging and daunting task. Our recommendations generally prioritized projects that revealed a great need, a view to help our youth, to help disadvantaged, pursue our heritage, our tradition, youth athletics, and economic development for many, many, many years to come, not just for 6 months or a year. And they were consistent also with the long-range goals of the Vision Fund criteria, which is set out in statute and ordinance, and with the Rapid City goals. So the funding recommendations we came up with a result of a lot of work, and with all due respect, we hope you consider it as a good and well thought out product. Our unanimous recommendations is as follows. Number 1, we recommend full funding of $21,000 for the disabled American veterans. This project will be completed in 2017, early 2017. The project's to replace a flagpole lost to inclement weather. It includes a new flagpole capable of flying 3 flags and a memorial with benches dedicated to all veterans. Flagpole will be eliminated and secured. Breakdown of costs were provided. They've come up and raised approximately half the amount of money necessary. They want and asked for $21,000 from us. That was the smallest amount of money that any applicant made. Their chapter serves over 21,000 veterans in western South Dakota. The need we identified is to give thanks and to honor the service of our brave warriors. We can all thank our veterans to be living here today and being able to pursue projects like this Vision Fund. The flag they wish to raise is our flag, the United States. They put their health and life on the lines for our country. In comparison, they ask very little. Please fund them, honor their service, and their valiant commitment to our freedom that allows us the freedom to come in and have projects like this. Next, we recommend full funding of $523,406 for the Community Health Care Center of the Black Hills Mental Health Care Pod. That money will complete 3,000 square feet of unfinished shell space within the Consolidated Health Facility in North Rapid City, a facility for which they've raised about $8 million on their own. And they ran out of funding. It's a completed project except for the mental health unit. So when this is done, it will be a complete project. And they've come up with most of it. Of course, they'll maintain it themselves. And it'll be done early 2017. There's a tremendous need for mental health care, especially for the underprivileged in our community. Treating the homeless and others will help reduce costly use of the community's emergency, medical, and police services. So people will be getting mental health care instead of going out and just not knowing where to go and not knowing what to do. So this is a very significant project. The center is on track to serve nearly 44,000 patients in 2016, and in 2017 they're going to serve well over 1,200 patients with mental health needs. They provide services on a sliding scale, and this is really an excellent project, and this will cap it, and they'll manage it, and it really addresses a need that we really don't have anywhere else. If you're homeless, you can go in, you're going to get help, you're going to get constant, reliable care. Number 3, we recommend $1,125,000 full funding for Wellfully Wellspring, the Wellfully Wellspring project. This project will create a new 27,676 square foot premier adolescent care center, including a new public teen development program called Life Above and Beyond. They will build the premier adolescent care center with an estimated cost of $5.6 million. They're asking much less than that. They're going out and raising all of that. In fact, after they made their application, they went out and purchased the site and funded and purchased the site. So they're really moving along, and they will break ground in 2017. Wellfully's provided services to more than 7,500 youth in our community. They serve over 300 youth a year through their own residential programs. One of the new programs in the facility will serve over 900 teens in a year through the lab program, and they anticipate with their growth to impact 15,000 families in terms of the family unit. Their current facility is too small to support the organization any longer. They work with teens or youth between 10 and 17 to overcome addiction, behavioral challenge, and abuse problems, and they help bring them back to health so that they hopefully are pursuing their education and doing positive things in the community. So it has tremendous collateral impact in a positive fashion on our community. They also have a mobile program which offers assessment, intensive outpatient, and continued services in rural locations. So they take care of western South Dakota, and they're the only program that offers this. So it's a unique opportunity to impact both our youth and future of Rapid City for year after year after year after year, and they will fund themselves. Next, we recommend full funding of $2 million for the Early Childhood Center Community Center project on behalf of Rural American. The project is to build a new 28,000 square foot facility that will include a childhood education and community center. RAI provides services to the most at-risk Native American children and their families. The aim is to mitigate the pervasive cycle of crippling poverty that traps the most vulnerable families, and to provide them with the tools to survive, to become self-sufficient, and raise strong children on their own with paths to healthy futures. Again, tremendous collateral positive impact of helping our youth move on to be contributors to our community. RAI Child Care Services now takes care of 200 Lakota children in our community, and they're currently operating out of 5 locations. They also have team programs that dramatically increase in an unparalleled fashion the graduation rate of their students. Their current facilities are so well taken care of that they have significantly exceeded their useful life. They're in need of complete replacement. They need a new building. They have, their project is to raise $6.2 million, and they're asking approximately 1/3 from us. The brick and mortar, they can't get funding from that anywhere else, so they need to come to us. This is going to be a wonderful project. Once the facility is built, it's built in such a way that it'll continue to expand into a full circle over a period of time. Hi. The project provides hope, care, life, skill training, and further supports cultural diversity in our community, and it's going to do it year in and year out, and it's only going to grow, and it's only going to help the health of our community. Next, we recommend full funding of $25,000 for the Rushmore Little League lighting project. This was proposed by the Rushmore Little League. The lighting will be installed by GenPro in early 2017. They're going to install 60 to 70 foot tall poles around the field and other locations in the area, and the lights are going to be fixed high enough and installed high enough to deter any type of vandalism. The lights help improve the night games, but it really has a great impact on the community. There are problems with vandalism, vagrancy, drugs, prostitution, and other crimes, which are common in occurrences at night in this area. And so Rushmore Little League will be responsible for powering the lights and any additional costs. The lighting will have a substantial impact on vagrancy and thereby improve the safety and security for the neighborhood, which has high-rise rentals. There's hundreds of people nearby, and so it's going to, for a little bit of money, it's going to do a lot to help us out. Next is we recommend not full funding, but significant funding for South Dakota School of Mines and Technology O'Hara Stadium remodel. $1,897,604. This project is to purchase and install new artificial turf for the football field, a new track surface around the football field, and some lighting and scoreboards and things of that nature. They wanted $2.5 million, but what we are recommending funding will take care of what they really need to keep operational. The recommended funding will allow them to install new artificial turf for the football field and a new track surface as soon as possible in 2017. Some monies will be available for scoreboard and lighting, which is helpful there because that's kind of the corridor where you begin to come into Rapid City, so that'll help beautify that area. The current AstroTurf and surrounding running track, if you go out there and look at it, they're replete with tears, rips, bumps. They're loose, unrepairable sections. They're in a deteriorated condition that's way past their useful life. The turf and track are in alarming condition and in dire need of replacement. I mean, there's just no argument here. South Dakota School of Mines is going to put the money into the field every year and is going to maintain it thereafter. And looking forward to the useful life of this field, they're going to be coming up with financing and capital campaigns so that they don't have to come back to us in 10, 20 years. They also need to know right away, because the company that makes this turf needs to know by the end of the year, because the timing is significant. There's only one company in the country that makes it, so they need to get on schedule and say, okay, we're in. And so there is some expediency there. And they will come in and install it in 2017. I just want to touch base also on what else this field does. It really hits a lot of organizations in our community. Youth athletics, high school athletics, local universities, Central High School home football field, Stevens High School home football field, St. Thomas More home football field, Rapid City Convention and Visitor Bureaus use it, South Dakota National Guard uses it, Rapid City Police Department, Regional Health, the YMCA, NFL Flag Football League for Youth, Rapid City Fire Department, Youth Football Leagues, Pennington County Sheriff's Department, they all use this field. Citizens that just want to go exercise for free, all for free. The state track meet is here every 3 years, and that brings in a huge amount of people. We'd lose that. And there are numerous other track meets. Without funding operations, they can't sustain what they're doing there. There's no more home field for our high schools, our universities, and all these activities I just mentioned. We lose the track meet and regional draws. This field has a large economic impact. For example, in one weekend, the state track meet brings in between 5,000 to 10,000 people to Rapid City and has a tremendous impact on our community. Please fund it because it's going to be there year after year after year, drawing in economic development for us. Next, we recommend full funding of $550,000 for the Central State Fairgrounds Stall Barn project. It will be completed in 2017. They will break ground at summer's end as the larger events tone down for the year, and then it'll take 60 days to construct. The funds will pay to build a multi-purpose covered arena, which will be put into use immediately. And conservatively speaking, we'll be able to stall up to 200 horses for larger events. There'll be a 15,000 to 20,000 square foot arena for smaller events, and it'll free up space, and there'll be other uses. The need is identified in having them maintain their current bookings and to grow. The projects they have there now aren't the biggest in the world, but they're continuing to grow. So they need expansion. And then they want to go out and get some, some serious national events. The fairground promotes agricultural, South Dakota's heritage, has a tremendous impact economically on the community. It's the James Kierstad Event Center at the fairgrounds is booked every weekend besides Christmas until 2018. The events include rodeos, stock shows, auctions, weddings, livestock shows, horse shows, motorsports, barrel races, horse clinics, horse sales, team roping, open riding, carnivals, fairs, and more. I mean, and that's people coming to Rapid City to spend money and do this. So it's huge economic impact. With additional facilities, The fairgrounds anticipates attracting the National High School Finals Rodeo, Little Britches Rodeo, and the National Indian Finals Rodeo. The economic boom that these events have on our community, hotels, sales tax, restaurant merchants, is just big. And it brings families from, all over the country. So, next, we recommend funding $127,990 for the Summer Nights Portable Stage project. Summer Nights needs to purchase a portable stage. The project aligns with the goals and values identified in our comprehensive plan. The stage will be purchased and can be purchased in early 2017. The stage is needed for entertainment productions. The one we have now is rented from Spearfish Summer Nights at a cost of $1,200 per night, but it's best to keep that money here and reinvest it in the program. Excuse me. This Thursday night, summer tradition of Summer Nights has been in operation downtown since 2008. It's a weekly entertainment festival, free of charge, runs all summer. Attendance can be estimated upwards of 10,000 people on every given night. So if you keep looking at this tradition into the future, it's free entertainment, great portable stage. This is going to go on and on and on and on. Investment that just keeps paying out. A person who is very modest means, maybe homeless, can stand next to someone who might be a millionaire, and they both, as citizens of Rapid City, can enjoy the free entertainment on the stage. We recommend funding. Next, we recommend full funding of $200,000 for the concession bathroom Parkview softball complex, which has been made on behalf of the Junior Olympic and Fast Pitch Girls Softball. This project will be constructed and completed in early 2017. The current softball fields are located on opposing and distant ends of the field. They have only one bathroom on one side. Due to the expanded growth and configuration of the complex, it's unreasonably challenging for parents and kids and grandparents and what have you to be running across and up and over all this land to just try to get to the bathroom. So it's too challenging. The softball field really needs this accommodation in the form of a restroom, and it'll also have a concession along with utilities and dirt work and paving. The association, of course, after that will maintain it. Their concession stand will help develop income to maintain it. The league currently has over 900 participants ranging in ages from 5 to 23 who participate at their complex. The fields are used from May to October, 4 nights a week, and all day on the weekends. All you have to do is drive over there in the summer, and it's like huge. With proper bathroom facilities, this is the last step. This is the crown. They're done. They're fully functional. They can open it up to regional, and they just have a great, great thing, and this is the last thing they need just to get there. So we recommend funding to make it fully functional and excellent complex. I hope committee members agree there. Now, we also, finally, in terms of our projects, full funding of $30,000 for the shade structure at Sioux Park's tennis courts. And this was presented on behalf of the Skin Center at Rapid City Medical Center. The project includes 3 shade structures, providing 2 independent shade areas that adjoin 12 tennis courts and 4 racquetball courts. Upon funding, the project will have final bid approval and review by January of 2017, so it's going to get done. It has to be done in time for the Rapid City Boys Invitational Tournament, which is on April 29th of 2017, so it'll be up and operational by April 2nd. This provides shade for rest, hydration, and protecting skin exposure to the sun. The complex has hundreds of yearly users. Again, we're talking about a big volume of citizens using this facility all the time, and this is going to help them out. We've got girls and boys high school tennis teams practicing daily, spring and fall, boys and girls state tournaments, adult leagues, adult regional invitation tournaments, a big under 14 regional tournament, summer-long recreation programs for children of virtually all ages. You go out there in the summer and all these young folks running around getting lessons. We have local youth tournaments, local adult tournaments, hundreds of private hours of lessons, and then the racquetball, they have their tournaments, and they're out there all the time too. So Skin Institute, pretty much on their own, funded a similar structure out at the Parkview tennis area, and now they'd like to do it here. They've raised about $15,000 in funding for this project, but they need $30,000 from us to complete the installation because the condition of the terrain is concrete, so they need some additional funds. Project is designed to promote the health and safety of hundreds of players of all ages, all throughout the year, year after year after year. So, and, you know, folks, when they come in for the state tournament for the boys and girls, are going to have a place to sit in the shade, and they're not going to sit there and complain about it because they have it out in Sioux Falls or Aberdeen or whatever. So, finally, the committee would like to thank all applicants for their view to improving our community. And it's just amazing when you read all the applications. We have a vibrant and just amazing place that we live in. We thank the City Council. We thank the City Council and the members that completed on-site tours and attended the public hearings. I'd like to thank Darrell Shoemaker for his valuable communication support. We'd like to thank Lindsay Sechrest for providing exceptional work and support and assistance to our committee. I mean, without her, I don't know where we'd be. Thank you very much, Lindsay and Darrell. So on behalf of the committee, all 9 of us, with over 400 hours of hard work, we believe the selected projects will improve the lives of thousands upon thousands of residents over the coming years. And may capture millions of dollars in city taxes and merchant revenues. So, with all due respect, we thank you for your consideration, and we submit our recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
George, you just missed, you accidentally missed one of your committee members who's here tonight, Mark Mazza.
I apologize, Mark.
From the local business community.
Mark's background is in retail management. Please stand up, Mark. I apologize for not introducing you.
Thank you for your hard work. There were 60-some applicants for the Vision Committee, more than any other committee that has ever been appointed since I've been here. And I think you've done a good job working together. I certainly didn't expect that you would take it this seriously, nor did I expect you would take the, well, I mean, you took it seriously and put it on a timeline that is a little bit surprising to me. It was done with a lot of hard work from the very first meeting to the last, and it was quite impressive to watch. I was very impressed with the group, especially that you spent so much time considering the Rapid City Comprehensive Plan as you vetted these projects. And just a little bit of, just another minute from me or so, and then we'll get to a few speaker request forms that we have, and then we'll see if the council has questions, and then we'll go into the discussion. But This committee was formed to take into consideration the 2017 award of vision funds. But more specifically, about 50% of the expected vision fund revenue, with the city holding back approximately 50% for the unknown but certain repairs or replacement of the Rushmore Civic Center arena. So they're working with $6.5 million, with about $72 million worth of requests from 25 organizations. So at the beginning of this process, in the first meeting which I attended, I gave the committee two simple instructions. Number one, I reiterated that this is tax money, that citizens are paying this, some involuntarily. But this is tax money implemented on by the citizens, voted on and approved by the citizens twice. First of all, in the 1970s to fund the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, and secondly in the 1990s when the Civic Center was paid off, and they voted to keep these vision funds active. They voted to continue to tax themselves for money that would make Rapid City a better place. So my instruction was to keep that in mind and to make the citizens proud and not feel any pressure to fund one project over the other. My second instruction was very simple, to not try to please everyone. Mathematically, that could never be done anyway, but I asked them to consider making meaningful, substantial awards as opposed to dividing up and giving everyone $5 to give them a token award. And that was it. At no time from the beginning or the end have I ever shared any ideas I had for which project would be better than the other. All of these recommendations have come from this committee organically without my interference. And my goal was to have this meeting tonight and to have the committee present as pure a process as possible. There is an understanding, and I've spoken to the committee a couple of times about this, there's an understanding that at this council meeting, the committee's work is done. And now these recommendations will be turned over to the City Council, and the City Council has final say on how to spend city money. And that $6.5 million is city money because it's taxpayer money. So all of the responsibility for final awards rests on the City Council. But I want to thank you on behalf of the community, on behalf of me and the City Council on the hard work that you've done. And I feel like we should keep your group together and move you to another area that we need work on rather than let you go back into your own lives. So thank you very much. Now let's just have the few speaker requests that we have, and then we'll have a question period for clarification, and then we'll go into the council discussion. So first, from representing Wealthily, Jessica Olson. And for these sessions, now we know George took 35 minutes for his presentation. You'll get 3 minutes on these speaker request forms, so keep that in mind. And go ahead, the floor is yours.
Mine's pretty simple. I just wanted to say thank you first for your consideration. I know you've heard from us, and it is a difficult decision to weigh all of the needs in our community. But I wanted to thank the Vision Fund Citizen Committee because it is truly impressive when you experience their dedication. They came to our facilities, they read over our material, and they took us seriously. And more importantly, they came to our facility and they saw the youth we serve. These are teenagers who are so often overlooked. And this committee saw them, and not only saw them and their need, but saw their potential. And that was really impressive and inspiring for us. So, of course, I want to ask you to approve the funding for our program. But I did want to just take a moment and say that they did take into consideration the investment in the quality of life for our entire community. And our program will be a place to partner with other teen agencies like Juvenile Diversion, Kim is here, Lifeways, and collaborate so that we can pave the road for success for future generations to come, thousands of teens. And I would just encourage you to accept their recommendations in full, because it was very hard work and well done. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, speaking on behalf of Rural America Initiatives, Amy Sazu.
Good evening. My name is Amy Sazu, and I represent Rural America Initiatives. I have at a few levels. I think I emailed everybody, so I think you guys all kind of know a little bit about my story. But I've been involved with REI as a parent policy council, as a parent volunteer, as a substitute teacher, as a teacher, and now with the Ateapi Elementary program. And I just want to reiterate the positive impact that REI has had on my family and for me myself. When we talk about developing our community, REI starts with the youngest, the birth to 3. I mean, starting with babies and their families. And I know they helped me become a better parent. They showed me life skills, parenting skills, and we have the capacity to work with children all the way from 0 to 3, all through high school. And I always take notes so I don't forget, but I forget what I'm going to say all the time. I just wanted to say that REI has supported me in my education. They help by paying for classes and books for us, and I've gone to school alongside a lot of my coworkers who also take the opportunity to better themselves, for themselves and their families, but also for the kids and the families that we work with. And I'm just really proud of the work that we do, the outreach that we have, and the potential to reach even more. We have, I always get lost, sorry. A lot of my coworkers I've known for a long time. A lot of us are parents. Ann Reddy, Priscilla Yellowhorse, we're parents, have worked there, and we've worked with so many families. We've watched them grow. That's probably my favorite part about working with the Ateapi program, is watching the kids come through again and with these same families that are looking for support, and we can offer that for them while they're moving away from their family, their support systems on the reservations. That's what they offered me. That's what we can offer them. We can help them become positive members of this community and offer something to make Rapid City better. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Our another speaker request form, also speaking for Rural America Initiatives, is Jim Scull.
Oh, thank you. And thanks to the committee for your recommendation. I appreciate that. And to the council, thanks for hearing us. Rural America Initiatives has become very close to my heart, and I'm engaged in a lot of Native American projects in this community, and this is a Native American project, frankly. This is helping the poorest of the poor, the most impoverished children. This is what differentiates Rural America Initiative from other programs. This program is dictated by federal regulation to take care of a certain impoverished level. So that's what we're talking about here, something that nobody else takes care of. So it's a unique program. The program is 30 years old. It's run by Bruce Longfox for 30 years, very, very successfully. Under the radar, so to speak. Most people had heard very little about Rural America Initiatives, but he's managed this program and served these children for many, many years. So it's a unique program, and one that struck my heart, because right now in America, generally, we've looked at early education and what it does to children. And we have a lot of children, Native American children, who don't get the attention they need from their home life, usually because the family doesn't have the time, because they're trying to feed their family or pay their rent. And so they're working 2 jobs. A lot of these kids don't get the attention they need. So we're talking about 2 to 5-year-old kids without the proper education to start kindergarten. And I think we all know that we've learned in this society that if these kids hit kindergarten without the proper education, simple vocabulary, words, alphabet, numbers, basic social skills, they hardly ever catch up. It's something I didn't realize till I started looking into it, and then I hear it over and over and over. And that's what we were up against here. Bruce serves about 200 kids in this community in that category, and has for a number of years in some very old buildings, modular buildings that about outlived their useful life, don't meet the standards of today at all because of security reasons or access reasons, serving hundreds of children, hundreds of meals out of kitchens the size of a motel room kitchen oftentimes. If you've been there, you could see this. So the need is really great, really, really great to serve these kids. And so my heart really got into it, you know, that this is something that this community, I know, will be proud to stand up and make it work. So with that in mind, you know, I ask you for your support. Along with it, I have to say something about Atiyapi, which he started and he's maintained for a number of years. That program continues to increase the graduation rate in students at Central High School in Stevens. Serving about 700 kids, frankly. I just heard a couple weeks ago the tally, the principal over there said, wow, we're up another 10 points on graduation for students over there. 93% of the students, the seniors that were involved in Atiyapi, graduated from high school. That, folks, is getting kids out of poverty. That's getting Native Americans out of poverty. That's what we have to focus on. If there's a way to help this culture, it's to help these people become citizens of Rapid City with education and good jobs. So that's what this is all about. This is giving these kids a really nice place to go to school, something they're proud to go to, help these families. You're helping families. Plus, he employs about 100 Native American families, probably the second largest employer in Rapid City. So it's all around. I just find it a very wonderful program that I think this city should support. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you. Now, if we could, this isn't the typical process here, but I just wonder if the council specifically has questions for any of the committee or anyone who spoke here tonight before we get into the deliberation. You do? Ready? Okay, we'll go to Steve Laurenti. Mine works. I think we should take that as a sign.
Rule.
All in favor?
Mine's not working. Oh, mine.
I think the mayor turned us off.
Yeah, we're not on.
Mayor.
So it works, but the light.
Okay.
Okay, that's dangerous. That won't go off.
Here, use mine.
I guess, like, Mayor, we're talking about individual groups that have been awarded. Am I correct? I have questions for each.
You can
Not
ask,
each one of them, but a couple, three of them.
ask any questions you want. Of
Okay, very
anybody
good.
here.
I appreciate that. I'll put that one back just in case it turns on by itself. I don't want to hear it squeal. Neither does anybody in the up here or out there. My first question, if the representative from Wellspring could come back up, I would greatly appreciate that. Wellfully, the Wellspring.
Yours.
Back to my own mic. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for bringing forward this great idea for our community. My question for you, as I just briefly wrote down numbers, as Mr. Graspy was doing his excellent presentation. I appreciate the committee's work. My question for you is, the project apparently is $5.6 million total, at least the projection. 21.4% of that budget is the award here for vision funds. Just, I think it's close, about 21.4%. My question for you is, what percent is Wellfully raised so far of the $5.6 million?
So we have purchased the land, which is $500,000, and we have cash on hand of over $250,000, $250,000. So to date, we're contributing over $750,000. And I emailed some of you about this to answer that question. As far as the public fundraising campaign, we're going to go public as soon as our PD process finalizes this month, because we didn't want to ask people for money until our I's were dotted and our T's were crossed. But based on our fundraising, if you were to approve this today, we would have $1.5 million ready tomorrow, and we could move forward with breaking ground in April.
So if you could break ground in 2017, when would you be complete?
2018. It's a it takes about a month to do the excavation, dirt work, foundation, and then from there we have an estimate of 12 months from Jake Skull Construction.
Is that an assumption that you raise that other, I'm going to say 78%?
So, yeah, and to clarify that a little bit, of the $5.6 million, so we asked for 25% of the building. The building itself is $4.5 million. So after you would approve that, we would have 1.5 and need to fundraise $3 million. And you can get about 60 to 70% of your project done with $2 million. And so we will be actively fundraising, but this is a very feasible project, and it's small. But yes, we will continue to fundraise, and then we've talked to the bank about a bridge loan based on those pledges.
Okay,
So,
very good, thank you.
yes.
And then I have a question, if I can, Mayor. I have a question for RAI, for their representative.
I'm Bruce Longfox, the Executive Director for Rural America Initiatives.
Thank you, Bruce, for being here tonight and presenting your project for the community. Again, same questions, basically. The total budget, at least presented, is $6.2 million.
That's correct.
The award is approximately 32.3% of that figure. When does what percentage of the $6.2 million has RAI already raised?
I don't have the percentage. It's about $1.3 million that we have raised to date. We just got also a $500,000 matching grant, which we're going to do 2 to 1 and hopefully raise $1.5 million from the general public.
Okay.
Also, on top of that, we're hoping for $1 million, $200,000 a year for 5 years from John T. Vukurovich. And then $500,000 from the Shakopee Mystic Lake Casino up in Minnesota. And that would bring us to the remaining $3 million that
Okay.
we would need.
The last two sources are unconfirmed sources?
Correct.
Okay.
There's also one anonymous donor from Rapid City, that the largest donor in town. Everybody knows who he is, but we will ask him. Hopefully we'll get a bounce from the contribution from the city to help him encourage to give $1.5 million is what we want to ask him for. So.
Okay, so all of that in place, what are we looking at for a timeline for completion?
We expect to break ground in October of 2017, and we have a partnership with the Haig brothers, and our fallback position with them, and it's assuming that there are no TIF funds available, we will begin construction October 1st of 2017.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
And then I have one last group, Mayor, if I may. South Dakota School of Mines. They have a representative here. If you could introduce yourself, sir, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
First of all, I didn't know I was going to be coming up here, but my name's Joel Lucan. I'm the athletic director at South Dakota School of Mines.
Thank you, Joel. My question for you is, given it's a great idea for the community. I know a lot of different high schools. My son, I have 3 boys that went through high school and played athletics, so I've gone to games there. My question for you is, given the award, what about the challenges of parking as participation and events expand? Because you are somewhat landlocked there. Is that going to become a situation for South Dakota School of Mines?
Well, it's a problem already, and I suppose if you were able to come up with $23 million, we could put up a parking structure, and I could put a soccer field on top of that too. Traditionally, it doesn't matter where you go. You can go down to the Broncos, you can go to Wrigley Field, you can go wherever in the country, and the 2 biggest complaints that everybody has, there isn't enough restrooms and there isn't enough parking. We've created parking, the institution created parking above the field. For the state track meet, the school district has partnered with the fairgrounds and offers a shuttle service back and forth. The institution, we politely request during the state track meet that none of our employees park on campus. It's a significant problem during the state track meet. We have issues with when BH comes to town to play football. We request to park on the railroad property. It is significant, yes.
Is there any commitment from the Alumni Association for the future of parking? Has that ever been discussed? Parking for that?
Not specifically on my radar at this point in time, but we are a little bit landlocked at the moment. I can't speak specifically if we have any plans to purchase any ground for parking at this point in time.
Okay. One last question. Has there been given any thought, because we're looking at taxpayer dollars for Rapid City, and given that we have schools, high schools, and a number of other public entities that use it, but specifically for me, because the schools have a budget and it can be challenging for the schools, is there any, I'm hoping that there's some thought given in this process that the high schools, especially the grade schools, if they use it, the K through 12 in Rapid City, get a very good deal. Or are they charged for use of the field?
Yes, there is a lease fee, yes.
I would hope that maybe that would become part of some discussion for the council as well, given this award. And I think the city has done an award previously for this field, if I'm not mistaken. No, we haven't? Not Vision Funds? Okay, all right, very good. So I'm hoping that can become part of the discussion. I'm very concerned about the budget of the schools and using public funds for this entity, which I think is a great idea. However, I'm hoping that we can work out some agreement with School of Mines to give a great deal. It's a 4-letter word, but it starts with an F and ends with an E, for use, because we're talking about, a lot of investment with public funds. So I'm hoping that there's something that can be worked out for public schools on this particular issue. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any of the council members have any further questions of the committee or anyone here representing one of these organizations before we get started with the deliberation? Richie, do you? Go ahead. Anyone else? Do you have any questions? Do you, any on this side have any questions? Okay.
There's a backup plan. Mayor, if I can just ask a question for George Graspy, please.
Yes, of course.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Crespi. I really appreciate the hard work and everything that your committee put together on and the deliberations that you had. You don't need to give me a full answer tonight, but I'm curious about your preamble that you presented here tonight. Is it possible to get that in writing, that what you've submitted here? What I mean by that is the introduction, your philosophy or your train of thought, how you came up with the funding sources or the priorities. You mentioned several here and how you arranged that. Is it possible to just get that in writing, your preamble?
Yes, in fact, the majority of that was sent out to all the applicants, whether we were recommending funding or not. We've gone through all of that, so it is available and can be presented promptly to you.
Thank you. That's all I need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions down here of the committee or the applicants at this point? Okay, ready to start? Okay, now we'll start the council discussion on this issue, and traditional council rules apply as far as your times go, and we're going to start with Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve these recommendations as presented by the Vision Fund Committee. If I could get a second, I would like to retain the floor.
Okay, we have a second by Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Lisa. First of all, I did not get to sit on all of the presentations, but the ones I did, I was absolutely impressed with the diligence, the depth of questioning, and the seriousness with which you took each and every one of these projects was just outstanding. And I think what I love most about this project, this whole process actually, and the changes that we made, was that it was truly by the people, for the people. There were no political motivations. And to me, that just, it speaks volumes, and I think if we were to open this up tonight, and I don't know what's going to happen after I get done talking, but, you know, there very well could be political motivations. And I just think it would be a great end to the year with what you've done to honor the work that you've put in. A couple of things that I wanted to mention is that I really appreciate how you were cognizant of the time sensitivity of some of these different projects, as well as not spreading the money around in a sense where nobody gets funded well enough, because we have had a history of that in Rapid City, but rather the greatest impact to the widest array of people. I mean, the diversity that you put into your decision, your recommendations, was really outstanding as well. I know there are some frustrations, obviously. There just is not enough money to fund everybody, and I think every one of us up here has something else that we would have liked to have seen. However, in honor of the work that you've done, the time that you've put into it, I stand by my motion to support your recommendations tonight. Thank you very much. I yield.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wow, thank you, Vision Fund Committee, for all of your hard work. I did have a chance to go through all the hearings and watch your questions through all of the different projects, and was pretty blown away. I think we got some great future council members if you're interested in that group. Always a plug. I'm also going to support your recommendations tonight, all of them. Yes, there are outstanding projects that did not make the list, and some of them are represented here tonight. We have some amazing people doing amazing things in Rapid City. Even those who don't get the funding, please don't get discouraged, because you're doing good work. And whether you're helping kids or you're trying to boost economic development, keep doing the work. And a no today is not a no forever. We have future vision funds, assuming the taxpayers still want to go this direction, but this is pretty remarkable. The taxpayers chose this half cent to reinvest into the community to improve quality of life, boost economic development, improve public safety, and make this the best place to live possible. You all, the citizens, and those of you watching at home, all two of you, decided that this fund was worth reinvesting into Rapid City to make it the best place possible. What I love about this recommendation is, yes, it spreads the money around, like Charity said, but it puts a lot of impact in it, meaning the vision funds are bringing maximum impact to impact the most people and do the most good in Rapid City. That is remarkable. And yes, there are some, if we were to start taking some of these out, there are some I may have preferred more than others, personal preferences, but guess what? It's not about me. It's about Rapid City and what's best for all of us. And so that is why I plan to support the motion to approve the Vision Fund recommendation from the Vision Committee, and I applaud all of you for the great work you do. And for those of you who may receive Vision Funds tonight, I really hope you make the most good of the taxpayer money, because they're investing in your projects and in your people. And one thing that is common about a lot of these projects is it puts people first, and without people, Rapid City is just a ghost town. Thank God we're not. We got a lot of good things going. So with that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Chair. I feel you can never give enough thank yous. So I'm going to add an additional thank you to the Vision Fund Citizens Committee and the hard work that they did. They took it seriously. This is how hard they worked. This is the book that they worked out of with 24 applications. And this is the core values book, which is pretty thick in itself, that they had followed. They were given a job to do. They were given a criteria, basically a spec sheet of how they should follow the process, and take that 24 recommendations and come down to a unanimous decision of 10 wonderfully worthwhile projects for the city of Rapid City. The other 14, my heart is out to that. I wish we could squeeze a few more dollars out, because there's never enough funding to get done everything that we need to do in the community. And that's probably the biggest challenge this council works within every single day that we're working for the city. We can never find enough money. But when we do have funds released like we did so short a time ago, it was only about September that the funds and the committee was formed, and this council, as due process, had accepted the appointments from the mayor, and we also accepted the process. And so that provides us the responsibility now to respect the citizens' work from that committee and the job that they did to bring it down to the 10 that they did. And so with that, I am in full support of the recommendations of the 10, and I would like to see this motion go through as it has been given, and get the shovels ready, and let's go to work. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And I forgot to clarify something when I was giving my speech at the beginning, and that is that this part of the process of the Vision Fund does not mean that checks are cut tomorrow and that this is a done deal. The motion on the floor is to approve the recommendations from the committee. Once approved, then agreements will have to be in place, assurance on bid rules and all the kinds of things that go along with it. So there's still some guarantees that the money will be spent responsibly and within the guidelines. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, everyone else has thanked the Vision Fund Committee, but seriously, you guys put in a lot of work and a lot of hours. And having sat through some Vision Fund Committee meetings as a full city council over the last 4 years, when we've had to reprioritize and go through funding because things came in over cost, it's not fun to have to sit there and go through those projects and try to put one on hold or bring one forward. So thank you for all the hard work you did. It took a lot of work and effort and fortitude to make the recommendations that you did. But as the mayor had stated, now you guys are done. You've done an excellent job. You've turned it over to the city council. Now, as a city council member, each of us, the 10 of us up here, have to bring our knowledge and our skill sets and our experience of what we have to consider all of these things. So With that said, Mayor, I'd like to ask not the Vision Fund Committee or any of the projects questions, but some staff questions for clarification. May I start asking some questions?
Absolutely.
And thank you, Mayor. You already hit one of them. Tonight, I'm going to have to be convinced to even approve the recommended list from the Vision Committee because of my experience on City Council and the funding of how these things come up. So if I may start with Joel Landine, please. Joel, as the mayor already stated, it's not like the City Council can write a $21,000 check or a $2 million check and just hand it over of Vision funds. Is that correct?
Identified in the recommendations and attempt then to get all the details worked out and then bring those forward, and then by approving those you would in essence actually at that point be approving the actual funding for those projects.
So tonight would just be accepting the recommendation of the Vision Fund Committee for their priority list?
That's how I would view it, and then I think that just sends to the staff, these are the groups that we need to start working with to get this lined up and bring forward agreements that will actually allocate the money to those groups, and under what terms and conditions that allocation will be made.
So a lot of times in the past, the money hasn't been written over to the other parties that have participated in these funds until major construction has occurred on these projects. Is that correct?
You know, I don't know if I would describe it that way, but because who would start construction unless there was some sort of commitment of funds? But I think that's where the agreements would step in, is it's a contractually binding obligation between the city and the groups that we are going to pay them those funds, and under what terms and conditions that payment's going to be made, and with provisions in there to protect the taxpayers' interest in that money and in that project.
So here's my other concern with this. Because of sitting on and trying to prioritize projects coming through, the City Council wanted a one-year plan or a half-year plan to try to make these dollars real dollars, or this, now dollars, not forecasted out for a project that gets put on hold for 3 years because we've seen costs just rise for construction. So my concern on this one is that if some of these projects don't go as bid or as in the Vision Fund request, is the City Council going to say, well, if you don't come in under budget of what we projected, then you're out? Or is the City Council going to come back like we always have, reprioritize, cannibalize one of these projects so that we can fund the rest of them? And if we're going to do that, I think these projects people and these project leaders need to know the priority list so they know if they're on the hatchet block. Seriously, we have had projects that have come in and we've had to scrap a field house. And believe me, I hear it from Alderman Nordstrom all the time that we had to scrap a field house that was supposed to go in from a previous fund, and it still isn't on the calendar or on the schedule, and it wasn't even presented for this one. So I have a huge concern that even if we approve these, I think the City Council needs to make a priority if we're going to go down this list of who meets that criteria, and if something comes in over budget, are they out, or are we going to reprioritize the money? Because I added up the money in here, and the Vision Fund Committee had roughly $6.5 million to allocate, and instead of keeping anything in reserve, they've allocated $6,499,000 or $6,499,900. I mean, there's like $100 for contingency, and I see I'm out of time, Mayor, so I'll get off my rant.
Okay. To address one of your concerns, I think, with the past awards of the vision process, always on a 5-year plan, always projecting out spending money that's not yet been collected. The difference between all of those processes and this one is that this money has been collected during 2016. This money is in the bank, and it is for 1 year. There is no guarantee of any process because the council will have to set that for 2018 and beyond. So we're talking about real money that we already have in our bank that can be spent for 2017 projects. Yeah, we're still not, yeah. Jerry Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been on this council 5.5 years, or close to it, and I think everyone that I've known that's been on the council in that time has said we need money spent on infrastructure. I know part of the Vision Fund is that we would get recommendations not only from the Citizens Committee, but also from our staff and so forth on infrastructure improvements. I've read and reflected the recommendations of the Citizens Selection Committee, and I respect and appreciate all of their dedicated effort. The total funding of $6.5 million, of course, did not come close to funding all of their requests, totaling approximately $73 million. The choices are well deliberated upon and considered by all in a very sincere way. I do, however, feel that we as a City Council need to look at the round of funding as a means of also investing in our city's infrastructure and prepare us for growth. With the recent completion of our downtown master plan, the overall comprehensive plan, and the emerging development of our downtown, I strongly feel we need to make the most of our investments in the future. I would like to see this committee or this council wait a couple weeks and evaluate this and see if there's any way we can either adjust the funding from other sources and support some of the infrastructure requests, in particular the one for the downtown lighting. But I think we're missing an opportunity, folks. The city of Rapid City has limited income to fix their infrastructure. It's either sales tax or property tax. And property tax is extremely unpopular. And the fact that we're not addressing our infrastructure in this time, we're setting a precedent, or maybe we won't before. Because I heard many times in the discussions in this dais over the last several years that we need to move vision funds towards infrastructure. And I really don't see, and I think these projects that are before us tonight are outstanding. I support every single one of them. But the fact is we're not addressing a single one of our infrastructure needs. We need to take this back and look at it and see if there's something we can do. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderwoman Scott, for the history lesson and the reminder that I needed on the field house. But I also have some, as you can tell, I've had some other special projects out there that I'm interested in, and there's more that needs to be done. So projects that's been taken care of or not taken care of in the past, you may be picking up on a sense that some of them are going to resurface again. So, but I also have a question for the finance officer, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
There's a little bit of additional clarification that I need on some of the comments that previous speakers have talked about. Can you enlighten us a little bit about I'll just call it dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and how that works for the half year or the 1 year projects that are going forward, and how that works a little bit, just a little bit of a clarification on that.
It's on, no light. So part of the comments that Ms. Scott made had to do with projects that go over funding, and there is a third option too, and it just takes a will of the council people, and that is to make the organization pay for their overages if it doesn't come on schedule, on budget type of thing. And as in all fairness, I have to say most of the money for the field house got cannibalized, as Ms. Scott said, because our pool estimates were low, and so when the bids actually came in, they came in much higher, and so we took money from another city project to help pay for a city project. I would have to do some research if we actually took projects away from other money away from other organizations. Like Joel said earlier, we usually do have a contract in place. the finance office would require some documentation showing that the construction or the improvements had been made. It's not just a blank check even after they get a contract. They have to show where they've spent the money typically, and we reimburse them, just to make sure that the city tax dollars are being spent accordingly and within the guidelines of what we have to follow under state statutes and that type of thing.
Thank you, Mayor. That takes care of what I needed to know, so I'll yield.
Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the group for all their hard work. It was a really great process to watch. And this is, as a council person, this is the first Vision Fund round that I've been involved in, so I wasn't sure how I was going to react to that and what kind of, so I went and sat and watched all 24 of the presentations. And what I walked away from that was just how fortunate I am to be a part of this great community, because when you look at all the organizations and all the people that are involved in it, and it's all everybody wants is to make this a better place to live, and I've just walked away in total awe of just all the people that work hard to make this a better place and a better community. And I did not talk to a single person on the Vision Committee I played no part. I did not contaminate the process, I guess is what I'll say. But I was impressed with the way they asked questions. I liked the questions they asked. They attacked each one with an open mind, I felt, and did a very fair process. Do I feel that just because the mayor appointed this group and that the council approved it, that we should rubber stamp them? No. But what I did come away from the process was that they listened. It was very thoughtful. And had they asked me what my thoughts were, I would have said, well, what I've learned is, just as Alderwoman Scott said, is that we had a city project. When you do a 5-year plan and you give somebody money in year 4 or year 5, and they're still raising money. We had our own project. We had about a $2.5 million pool that cost us about $8.4 million. And inflation eats it up. So that was one of the reasons why this council wanted to do a 1-year deal, because we wanted to get that money out there and try to get real money. So if they would ask me, I would have said, well, please pick projects that are as shovel ready as possible. Well, we heard tonight that our Rural America and Wellfleet, they have some fundraising to do, but the major projects that weren't funded had major, so I hope they can get their funding in line and that time doesn't go on and it gets eaten up. But my position is that this is how much we're giving them, and it's not our responsibility to go back if the budget goes up to make it work. I'm ready to vote tonight, and I want to support this. And I thought you did a great job of mixing social needs and economic development, and I applaud you and appreciate everything you did. And there's, as our attorney said, there's lots of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed within each agreement. But I think all in all, you guys did a great job of trying to impact the most amount of people you could with the dollars you had at hand. The infrastructure, I totally agree. We're all looking for money to do infrastructure, but had we wanted some of this money to go to infrastructure, I think we should have set that aside and not made that part of this draw. Because I think if we'd have said, we want 30% of this to be towards infrastructure, then we would have had about $4 million for Vision Fund to be distributed, and that might have made an impact on who applied for the money and how much effort and time and effort you put into it. So infrastructure is just a constant battle we have here, but my recollection is that, and it's my recollection only, is that since we banked all of 16's money towards the Civic Center and half of 17, that it was we kind of wanted to get the money out, you know, half of this out to the people, to projects, and try to help people. So I yield. Thanks.
John Roberts.
I think this is working. Is it working?
Nope.
Thank you. No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's hard to tell. My light's on, but I turned it on 15 minutes ago and it was working on and off. So I want to thank the committee. You did a wonderful job. I know from being up here where you were at, you had a very difficult decisions to make. You had good projects that you had to throw out. I think you brought some wonderful projects forward. Unfortunately, on a committee or on the city council, we can't make 100% of the people happy all the time. So we have to do what we can do. A couple of the projects I absolutely love that you have in here. I think most people up on the dais and a lot of people in Rapid City know I spent many years working for the county, Pennington County, and many years working on and off in juvenile detention. So I'm very happy to see Wellfully and RAI come across this. Not only is it going to be beneficial to the future of our community, but a lot of times these young people get put in situations that they have no control over. So I love seeing these two projects. There's a few other projects that I had comments from constituents and from the community on. The South Dakota School of Mines project and the project for the horse barn. You know, people were saying, well, these are other taxing entities, they should be taking care of it themselves. Good projects. You know, like I said earlier, though, I'm not on the committee, I'm not making the decision. You made the decision. I think we need to support your decision. We need to go forward no matter what we on this council believe. You're the ones that put all the hard work, all the time into it. If it was up to us, the 10 of us on this dais, we could argue back and forth for the next 6 months over which project's the best, which project isn't. We could take, you know, all the concerns from the citizens, and we could just end up doing this for the next year. I love the fact that we're using money that we have in the bank, because I know in the 5.5 years I've been on this committee, it has been an issue putting these projects out 2, 3, 5 years. I do think that my ward mate, Alderwoman Scott, one of her concerns is, at least what I read into it, is we're going to be funding somebody that may start a project and not get it fully done. Now, I hope that doesn't happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. I think if we get a project that's 80% done and the people of Rapid City see that, I think the people will step up. So I'm very happy about how this has went. Like I said, I had a few people that were concerned about a few projects. And like Jerry Wright, Councilman Wright, I'm also one of those council people that thinks more money should come out of the Vision for Infrastructure. You know, Vision has been a wonderful tool for Rapid City. We've done great things with it. And also because we're probably, well, we are the only taxing entity in the state of South Dakota that takes a half cent to put into this. So that gets us behind constantly on our infrastructure needs. So I'm hoping in the future we will look at some of these other needs. And also, if you look at a lot of the things that we've done, they've been not so positive for the general fund. I mean, you know, we build an absolute beautiful pool, but we don't think about what it's going to cost us to maintain it and what it's going to cost the general fund. And I've talked about that for years and years too, about what we can do as far as taking some of our Vision funds to keep up with the maintenance of these projects that we do. But anyway, I just want to commend you one more time. I think you guys did a wonderful job. I support this too. There's a couple of projects I do want to say I would have loved to see YFS in it, but I'm being a little bit, you know, that is in my ward, and it's also another needed project for youth. So anyway, thank you very much, and I will support this.
Okay, the motion on the table is for approval of the Vision Fund's recommendation. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Here.
Roll call, please.
No. Your vote.
Me? Yes.
Roberts? Yes. Nordstrom? Drew? Sorry, here. Solomon? Aye. Doyle? Aye. Estes? Aye. Scott? No. Laurenti? No. Motion passes 6-3.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, and for the people receiving the recommendation, and for the media, and for anyone else. Just keep in mind that this is the recommendation for funding, has been approved. Now we go on to negotiating contracts and other agreements to both protect the city and the recipient as well. So thank you all for coming, and the Vision Committee, what job well done, and you are dismissed. Thank you. Now the room's going to get cold. I want to get...
How much of that left is there? How are you? Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, mine. Well, my microphone's on. I hate it when that put on. And
Take 5.
I want to get...
Okay.
Hopefully she stays.
Well, that emptied the barn, didn't it?
Oh.
Hey, would you all consider, if we got a lot of money in vision funds, doing the downtown lighting and get some of that stuff in there?
When 18 you're talking about now?
But they're not ready.
And let me tell you something.
Even that
for
project's not ready
downtown
yet.
lights, we're trying to throw people.
They have to go, they have to get into the downtown master plan to get that ready.
That is infrastructure.
That's not a need.
But we
Talking
can't
about
forget that the
infrastructure
Civic Center is
needs,
right around the
not
corner.
infrastructure wants.
Okay, let's continue with the meeting for a moment.
Argument. Let's do it.
I want streets.
Streets and
I want
sidewalks.
streets first.
Let's float a $10 million bond issue and do it.
Okay, now we're going to take the next item slightly out of order because we've inadvertently punished our one general public comment speaker tonight by doing all of that before. So we have one general public comment tonight, and that is Jackie Gallego.
What's the vision for Ross? What's the downtown fix?
For all of you guys at the City Council, you have a hard job ahead of you, and I think you're doing extremely well, or you wouldn't be up there. One thing from in the past that I had wanted to come back and visit with you about, with everything happening in Rapid City and Native American personalities and citizenships and things that are being built, which is a positive thing, especially with like Bruce Longfox with the Rural American Initiative, and Jim Skull being one of the good spoken people with trying to help with Native Americans. We would like to, as the Native Sun News, would like to get you guys back into the paper for the minutes. We were in there for a while. I think the budget kind of got mixed up about a year and a half ago. I did bring some papers with me. I don't think you probably need to see them, but you can. In the last year that we did have the minutes, we had $13,000 that were used in different variations from the city on job placement and the minutes themselves. So in that budget, I think that if we could get that $15,000 budget back in for the city minutes is something that I think it helps with the citizenship, with the Native Americans that read the Native American publication, which is our publication here in Rapid. We're going on our 10th year, and we've grown to be one of the we are the largest weekly in the state of South Dakota. So again, I would like to address that you be able to include us into the budget for the 2017 year. Has anybody got any questions for me?
Thank you, Jackie, and sorry to keep you here so long.
It was a good education, civic duty.
All right, thank you very much. The next item will be a need to go into executive session for possible litigation and consult with legal counsel pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 subsection 3. Can I have a motion, please? Motion to go into executive session from Steve Laurenti and a second by Charity Doyle. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries with one vote. We're in executive session. We'll be back shortly. Okay, item number 2. We're back. Okay, we have a motion to come out of executive session by Estes, second by Solomon. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now this takes us to the non-public hearing items 2 through 49. There are no speaker requests for those items. And then on to consent items 2 through 38. Would the council like to pull any of these? I can't see your Doyle.
Item number 28, please.
Amanda.
Item number 18, 19, 25, 26, and 29.
Richie. John.
17.
Anyone else? Okay. What we have requested to pull is 28, 18, 19, 25, 26, 29, 23, and 17. Okay, if there are no further, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with those exceptions? Got a motion from Brad Estes and a second from Steve Laurenti. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. So that takes us down to item number 17, which is to acknowledge Minnelusahan roof repair from Alderwoman Darla Drew. And she's not here, so we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so is that a motion, or could it be a motion to postpone this to the next? Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge and a second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion for 17, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 18, which is to acknowledge the sidewalk discussion. Go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make the motion to acknowledge the sidewalk discussion and retain the floor if I can get a second.
Second.
Okay, second by Jerry Wright, and go ahead.
So the discussion at Public Works was the recommendation from staff. They brought forward some sidewalk areas that look like they are majority built out. But the motion on the floor was just simply to acknowledge this discussion, and I'm trying to look from anyone from the Public Works Committee or maybe even Mr. Dale Tech. What would the next steps be? I'm kind of confused. We had a discussion. Is that it? We're just going to discuss for 2017 and we're going to kick this down the road, Mr. Dale Tech, for another 5 years?
We'll go to Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Per the direction of the council wanted some suggestions as to where to put sidewalks in. I believe it's truly in the council's court now for you to decide what you want to do next. Do you want to start ordering in sidewalks in areas, using this as a roadmap, if you will, for the installation of sidewalks? There is quite a process involved if you go down that road to start ordering in sidewalks, as far as notification of the property owners and then following up with an assessed project for those sidewalks that didn't get installed by the property owner. So,
prior to the city council even taking that first step to say, okay, like if today the appetite of the city council was to go ahead and order in the sidewalks on the recommended areas that were identified or presented by staff, does a funding source have to be already identified, or are there a lot of other steps in between that we don't have to come up with a funding source for an assessment project until we start down this process?
there is a number of steps that would be involved before you'd have to identify funding for it. The first step would be to decide where you're going to order in the sidewalks. In the past, it works best for the council to notify the property owners that you're thinking about ordering them in and then getting the public input from them, because you will get public input from those affected property owners, and then ultimately make a decision that, yep, we're going to proceed with this. Here are the properties that we're going to do it. Let's make it official. Typically, it's at least a 6-month time frame, depending upon timing of the year, based on weather, availability of contractors for the people that own the sidewalks to self-install. And then after that is done, then becomes the time that you're going to have to identify a funding source if you're going to do an assessed project to assess all those other property owners that did not do the work.
Well, I think the city council has a big job in front of them, because according to my latest review of all of our city funds, they're pretty well tapped out. So even coming up with a funding source for the special assessment or the assessment project that would be repaid over time, that's going to be a huge item that the city council is going to have to decide. But I'm probably out of time. I know the mayor didn't have the clock working correctly with the incorrect microphones up here, and I've already made the motion to acknowledge the sidewalk discussion, but I would highly encourage and I would support any motion to start the process of ordering in those sidewalks by directing staff to send those initial letters out. Thank you.
I got my console back here so you can use your buttons again. We'll go to Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could ask Mr. Tech a question?
Yes.
Thank you. Dale, let's say you take an area, and I know Deadwood Avenue is one of the priorities. Matter of fact, it was the first priority listed. So if you order in sidewalks, does the entire length, does it all have to meet ADA?
Yes.
So I just drove it to look at what topographical challenges there would be. There's some spots where I think it'd almost be impossible, or do you have to zigzag? Do you have to do whatever it takes to make it ADA? Yes.
Yes, with the exception of if it requires rebuilding the road or purchase of buildings and such, to me that would be an exception that we could claim to not have it meet ADA requirements, but every effort needs to be made to make it ADA compliant.
That's cross slope and linear slope and
Cross slope and grade along the road, you're limited to whatever the road is. I don't believe that we have any excessive road grades out there in excess of 9%. But typically, the cross slope is fairly easy to make with some minor grading. However, there may be some retaining walls that may need to be built to accommodate that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry Wright.
I don't know if it's is it working? I make a motion that this be referred to Legal and Finance for process in the first meeting in January. Can we do that?
So it'd be a substitute motion then to refer it to?
To identify the areas and so forth, yes. So we'll get more details, come back with more substance to the council.
He's already identified them. He's put in a request.
We got fundings?
We don't need funding.
Dale Tech.
There's about $1 million in the SAB 28 fund, which is an assessment bond that would be available for that.
And, well, Mr. Tech said that we didn't have to have a funding source identified because we can start with the initial letter.
I withdraw my motion then. Thank you.
Okay, so the current motion on the floor is to acknowledge the discussion, correct? And we'll go to Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to amend the motion to direct staff to send the initial letters ordering in sidewalks, and if I can get a second.
Second.
Is that a second by Jerry Wright?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a substitute motion to direct staff to make the notifications ordering in sidewalks to the already identified landowners.
And Mayor, if I may as well, I'd like to maintain the floor if I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. The reason I'm making the motion is purely based on what Mr. Tech has said. We've talked about this many, many times. Some of the details we'll hammer out as we move through. We can get all of the voluntary people who will be putting them in. I assume that won't start till spring, Mr. Tech. I assume that's when that would probably happen. If we order it in now, it's not feasible at this point to. We would.
That's correct. If you ordered it in now, you've got to give them plenty of time to. I mean, it's not just the first day the weather is nice. They've got to hire a contractor, get in that schedule. So
very good. And I would hope my colleagues will support this. We've talked about it. We've talked about it. We're again just trying to acknowledge it. I think we need to start. We need to take some action. The people who are going to have that we're sending these letters to, I think a lot of them or some of them will voluntarily begin to do that in the spring. And then we'll have time to, it sounds like we already have one funding source where we're going to be able to do some of the others that need to be assessed. But from what Mr. Tech is saying, we're looking at a 6-month process. So let's get the ball rolling. In 6 months, what month are we in? I just want my colleagues to think about that. We're going to be in the season of where they can begin to, they can do this. So I think we need to move now and then see where it shakes out and identify the funding source, which it sounds like we already have some of that. I don't know if Mr. Tech, if you have something else you'd like to share.
I just have a question for clarification purposes. Is it notification to all 6 areas that we've identified, or is it?
Yes, I believe that's where we need to start, absolutely. Okay. I'll yield the floor to listen to my colleagues. Thank you, Mayor.
I probably erred in letting you keep the floor on that since it was a substitute motion.
Sorry.
Let's get that motion either on or off the table before we continue debating. So we have a substitute motion proposed right now, which will direct staff to notify everyone in all 6 areas to install sidewalks. Any other discussion on
I have a question on the substitute.
the merits of that motion?
I do.
Same with you, John?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a question for the city attorney if he's around somewhere. I don't know where he went. He disappeared. I have some concerns over making a motion over the top of an acknowledgement of a discussion because we're not giving people notice. So I think we're breaking state law by doing that. I think that we actually have to acknowledge this, and then we have to bring it back as an item so people have the opportunity to come forward on the council if they have any questions or concerns.
Go ahead and ask your question to the city attorney, please.
Can we make this, Joel, can we make this motion to call in these sidewalks over the top of this discussion purpose without giving people acknowledgement on bringing it forward as an item?
So in other words, the agenda item is to acknowledge the discussion on sidewalks, and now there's a substitute motion proposed to order in the sidewalks.
Well, I think what you should, if you want to start the process, then it should be to direct the staff to bring back the items, the sidewalks identified. And I mean, I'm sure there's a process in place for ordering in the sidewalks, and we need to make sure that we follow the process. And yes, that will involve notification of the landowners, and then they have a process in place to come to the council. But I think if what you're trying to do is get the ball rolling on and in ordering in these sidewalks, that's fine. But as far as the individual sidewalks and the individual property owners, yes, those should be identified and called in so people have a opportunity to respond to that.
Right, but to the question
They
is
are identified.
to the question.
But there was no indication that we were calling in or that was the discussion. And again, I would have to go look at what the specific process is for ordering in the sidewalks.
Okay, hold on a second. The question is, because of the item being to acknowledge the discussion on sidewalks, is a substitute motion to order in the sidewalks a legitimate or legal motion?
Don't we have to bring it back forward as a legitimate item and not a discussion item so people can come forward if they want to discuss, if they're on that list of sidewalks being called in?
Well, and I'm trying
before we call them in.
Yeah, I understand. I'm trying to decide how much. There is a specific process for ordering in sidewalks. And if these sidewalks are not going to be ordered in by the action tonight. If you're just trying to direct staff to, and maybe it would be, I don't think it's out of order to say, bring back or start the process for initiating the sidewalk. I mean, there was an item on there, the sidewalks were identified. The discussion that you were having is, do you want to order these in or not, or start proceeding in ordering these in? But, I mean, that's where I worry we're splitting hairs is, if we're talking about the actual mechanism of, hey, we make a decision tonight, these sidewalks are for sure going in, no, I think that motion is out of order. If the motion is, okay, we've discussed these sidewalks in the general policy and staff, you're directed to start the process on these sidewalks, then I think that is in order.
Mr. Roberts?
To me, it sounded like we were calling them in, not just starting the process. So if we're starting the process, it's gonna come back before us, so the general public, my mic's working again, amazing. If we're just gonna bring this back so the general public has the opportunity to come in and speak before this body on any sidewalk that may be called in at that time, I don't have an issue with it. If we're just calling in sidewalks without giving the general public the opportunity to speak on that issue, I definitely have a problem with it. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll rule that the motion is, the substitute motion is in order and it can be voted on. So anyone else want to talk specifically about the substitute motion? Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think the question may go to Dale Tech, and it's more procedural. So, Dale, if I may, we need to have the full $3.2 million identified in the event that we end up having to do the project and it's assessed. I mean, we have to have, is it true that we have to have all of that, a funding source for all of that in the event that all of these property owners decide that they can't upfront the money and we have to assess it?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
You can order the sidewalks in if they put them in, that's fine. If they don't, then that's a decision point that the council needs to make if we're going to move forward with an assessed project to install the balance.
So it's an either or?
Well, it's purely your decision to make. The risk you run ordering in sidewalks and when people don't do it, and then you say, well, we don't have money to put them in anyway, then people may not be putting them in. So to me, it's wise to, if you're going to go down the road of ordering in sidewalks, you should be committed to doing it all.
Funding source.
Correct.
That is exactly my point. So what I heard you say earlier is we had 1 million in SAB that we could use, knowing that that payback is over 5 years. And just the ones you have listed here is about 3.2 million. So keep that in mind, please.
Okay, Lisa Modrick, pertaining to the substitute motion.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's on. So to follow up on this question, which if we do indeed process this motion and we're ordering it in, this then sets the process of all those other sidewalks coming where they go to nowhere, where basically we need a plan. And what I'm concerned about with this particular motion on the floor is we're going to be ordering sidewalks in, but we still don't have a sidewalk plan or a master plan. And we're going to have sidewalks come before us. They seem to come before us every single meeting. So if we're acknowledging this one and we're processing the 6 on the list, do we even have the design of how that process is going to go? What the time limit that they have? Is that an ordinance? That might be a question for Joel. Is it ordinance design so that everything that we're saying right now moves forward orderly? Or do we just wing it with this motion?
Okay, let's vote on whether or not we're accepting the substitute motion to have staff notify everyone that sidewalks will be required. More thoughts on this, whether the substitute motion is, whether you're going to support that or not? Jason Solomon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, can I ask a question of Dale Tech, please?
Yeah.
All right, Dale, so you're saying we don't need to have the full funding source for it, but we probably should if it's going to have any teeth? Is that pretty much what I'm hearing?
That would be my recommendation, yes.
That's my only concern on the motion is if we had a funding source, then I'd feel a lot more confident. Is there a way we can make a motion to use the a $1 million project with all the proper notifications and everything? Or do we need to have the full funding source figured out before we start ordering in sidewalks? And I mean, that's kind of my question for us is funding. I mean, I guess it's on like what Charity had mentioned, but that's where I wrestle with is, do we even have the funds to do it? And then does it have teeth? Do we need it? And so I'm looking for some of my more experienced colleagues to enlighten me on whether we need those funds or not in order to do this. Thank you.
Let's refine the argument. Let's refine the argument as to whether or not this secondary motion, the substitute motion, is an appropriate motion. I mean, that's what we're talking about right now. So we can get to the voting on this secondary motion. Jerry Wright.
My motion of January, direct staff to come back with us a plan to implement this and how we would do it by January 15th. We need to proceed, but how? Give us a roadmap. And that's January 15th is the time for completion or a time for them to get back to us and we can move ahead. As it is right now, we're just kind of stumbling along. So I'd like to see this come back to us in January. I'm not making an emotion right now. I'm just talking.
It's fair, but we have a substitute motion. We're debating on advising staff to notify everyone that sidewalks will be required. Amanda Scott?
Thank you, Mayor. And may I ask a clarifying question concerning the substitute motion of Mr. Dale Tech?
Yes.
Thank you. Dale, it seems like the confusion is coming along as far as the process. Maybe I misunderstood what you said, and everybody else heard exactly what you said. But I'm going to ask you one more time, because this is what I heard. By ordering in these 6 areas, what we're directing staff to do is go ahead and send out the initial letter. And I believe you said it's an initial letter to say the city council is considering ordering in your sidewalks, and it looks like it will be this next year. At that point, we would have an opportunity for the citizens to come in and say, I got this letter that I have to put a sidewalk in. What's up with that?
You are correct in what I said. However, the motion that was made was to actually order the sidewalks in. What I said about process is the council should, upon my recommendation, you should notifying saying that you're considering doing this before you go down the road of actually demanding that it be done. So, yes, you heard me correctly. However, the motion on the table is to go ahead and just get them put in.
And, okay, now may I ask Joel and Dean a question?
Yes.
So, Joel, with Mr. Tech's interpretation of that, that's not what I understood your interpretation of this motion to be.
Correct. If I can make a suggestion, I suggest you defeat the motion and adopt a motion suggesting that Jerry, obviously we're all unclear. People want to keep the project, or at least some people appear to want to keep the project moving forward. Why don't we bring back as staff a recommendation at the January 15th meeting where we figure out how much money and which, if we only have $1 million, which of the sidewalks on the list we would prioritize, and then we can have a better handle on what the actual process is to order them in and make sure that the people that are going to be impacted by it have sufficient notification.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
I'm good.
Okay. Let's vote on the secondary motion to notify staff or have staff notify landowners that sidewalks are being required. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, that motion is defeated. We go back to the original motion to acknowledge the discussion. So go back to Brad Estes.
I make a substitute motion that we ask staff to come back with a report on the exact procedure on how to order these sidewalks in at the January 15th meeting. And if I get a second, I'd like to. Thank you. And if, personally, if we have $1 million, I think we should look at about a $2 million project. Just guessing that hopefully 50% of the people put theirs in, and then we only have to put in, the other half through assessment. Is that a horrible gamble, Dale?
I won't even venture an answer at that. It may be just fine. It may not work.
Yeah. I don't think, all I'm saying is I personally don't feel that you have to have 100% of the financing, maybe 50 to 75%, because some of the people are going to put their sidewalks in. If I could, Mayor, I have one other question for Mr. Tech.
Yep.
When you look at, so I talked about Deadwood, when you look at the total length of Deadwood Avenue, now in the order in sidewalks, I mean, a project like that, should that have a master plan, or do you just there's a set spot for them to put the sidewalk in? Let's say if somebody, Hebron Brick wants to put their sidewalk in, we know where to tell them to put it?
Yeah, the standard location for sidewalk per city code is 1 foot from the property line in the public right-of-way. We understand there are instances where there are obstructions, things that limit that, and we work typically with property owners and locations for them to put the sidewalk in.
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. I yield.
Can you clarify this motion, please?
You want me to clarify my motion?
Yeah.
that staff comes back to the January 15th meeting with the with the precise process to how we go about ordering his sidewalks.
Sunday.
That's a Sunday. Yeah.
The second council meeting in January then, sorry.
Council meeting or, yeah.
Okay, is that the motion you seconded, Jerry, right? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. On that substitute motion, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification, 15th is on a Sunday, 16th is also a holiday, so the 17th is probably when we're going to have this discussion. And that'll be in front of the full council then, rather than taking this to either Legal and Finance or Public Works? Do I understand that correctly?
January 10th or January 11th.
No.
11th, legal and finance.
Legal and Finance or Public Works?
Public Works is the 10th.
Could it go before both?
It's just getting worse.
Just do one.
This is nothing. You should have been here when we used to have it for 6 hours.
So take it to Public Works.
We'll take it to Public Works on the January 10th. Right. Public Works, January 10th.
I can support that.
Okay, we have an amendment of the substitute motion to bring this, for staff to bring this item back to Public Works on January 10th. Still okay with the seconder? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I feel like we just lived out that scene from the Abbott and Costello movie where
Who's on third?
Who's on first? That was hard. I apologize for that. I think I was caught off guard by the technology, and so we'll try to clean up. Now, that was item 18. Yeah, we're still on consent. So next on to item 19, which is to approve request to purchase fire apparatus through National Joint Powers Alliance in the amount of $344,793. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask a question?
Yes.
So in streaming the Legal and Finance Committee meeting last week, because I wasn't able to attend, did I understand that this, because I'm looking at the funding source on here and it says 0112, is that the Wildland
Yes, it is.
Fund?
Yes.
Okay, so just help me out here. For the budget, this money is coming out of the Wildland Fund. That fund is when our fire department goes out and helps in another area outside Rapid City, and then they're reimbursed for their expenses, and that money goes into this fund.
Correct.
So where does the money go into the fund to support our firefighters going out to help other communities? Is that already in this Wildland Fund?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh,
Pauline might
sorry,
have to
Pauline.
Jump in here a little bit.
You'll actually see it coming forward on that last supplement of the year. They do a transfer out of the Wildland Fund into the general fund to cover those costs that we're seeing for the personnel to be gone.
It comes out of general fund.
Okay, so we already did a supplemental from general fund to the Wildland Fund?
No, other way around. So the employees are still getting paid out of the general fund, and at the end of the year, we reconcile it with the Wildland Fire, so cash is being transferred out of the Wildland Fire Fund, which was reimbursements for them being gone, and put into the general fund to cover those costs.
Okay.
So that's coming on the last one of the year.
So do we know that this is, and I don't really want to use a business term for government, but is this revenue? Is this above and beyond the expenses that were incurred by our firefighter employees at this point?
Yes, it is.
So this is profit that's being spent at this point
Correct.
for this equipment? Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
We don't have a motion. Motion to approve by John Roberts and Jerry Wright, and a second by Brad Estes. All in favor of approval of item 19, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. And now we're going to go on to item 23, which...
Mayor? That was mine.
Yeah, item number 23 is to approve resolution number 2016-093A, resolution fixing time and place for hearing on assessment roll for cleanup of miscellaneous property. And we'll go to go to Mr. Nordstrom.
Jerry Nordstrom.
Jerry thank you, Mayor. We have a payment that's been made on this miscellaneous property. So if I can turn this over to the finance officer to explain the details on this latest payment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. We need to remove number 6 for A-Ball LLC as they came in on Friday and paid their assessment.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve with the amendment?
So moved.
Okay, approval from Brad Estes and second from Steve Laurenti. Richie, good? Okay, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 25 is to approve resolution 2016-090, approving Civic Center position, title, and compensation grade changes. Go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, and may I ask Pauline Sumption a question first, please?
Yes.
Pauline, as far as the attachment for this one, did it come from the Civic Center? Did it come from Craig, or was this created from the Finance Department?
Not us. Craig is out in the audience. He probably worked with HR to bring that forward and to go through those.
Craig, would you mind answering a question? Craig, just to let you know, when I first read this, and even in review of this, when I had brought it up, maybe it was me, and maybe I need to read a little bit more in depth, but when I start at the beginning and it says non-union pay scale titles only, I did not expect to see a wage change within this box. And then when I streamed the Legal and Finance Committee meeting, I believe I heard that the last item on here is actually a wage change. So is all these items within this first box simply just a title change, or was there a salary change for one of these? So the Civic Center Operations Manager is a title change and a wage change? Okay, and so this shows us what it's going to? Minimum and maximum? So what was it before? $10%? Roughly you just moved the range about 10% for the minimum and the maximum? Okay. So I just wanted clarification on that before everybody votes, because I did not read it that way when I first read it. And then obviously the last one, or the bottom one, I mean, it was clearly defined as new FTE as presented by the board, so I got that one, but I got to tell you, I was a little confused. So if we can separate those out in the future, I'd appreciate it. But thank you. I yield the floor.
Okay, item number 25.
Motion.
There's no motion. Motion to approve by Jerry Wright.
Second.
Second by Charity Doyle. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now on to item 26. 26, which is to approve resolution 2016-091, a resolution to add full-time equivalent positions within the City of Rapid City per the approved 2017 budget. And we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I just pulled this item because since it is including the full 24 FTEs at this time, being approved all at one time, I was not in favor of this at budget time, so I just pulled it so that I could vote no on it. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion on 26? Okay, we have a motion by Wright and a second by Modrick for approval. And we'll go back to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I meant to add another line on there. The reason I'm not supporting this is that the 2017 budget included undesignated cash of $3.5 million that was added to this budget, and this budget included 24 new FTE positions. So since the budget this year was presented in an overall, and I'm not really sure, even though the mayor said there was no additional wages added for these 24 employees, I can't reconcile 24 new FTEs with the addition of $3.5 million of undesignated cash going into the 2017 budget. So thank you for letting me say that.
Okay, but I think the number 24 is incorrect.
Is it?
I think it's 14 perhaps.
Let's see, 3,
It's 24.
4, 7,
There's something with
16,
fire, though.
17, 18, 19. Chemist, 20, 29, 21, 22, 23. No, there's 24,
All
Mayor.
right, the nine firefighters on the grant.
Yeah, there's 24.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Here.
We have, motion passes with 2 noes from Scott and Laurenti. And that was item number 26. Now we'll go on to item number 28.
Yep.
Which is approve resolution number 2016-096, a resolution adopting a conflict of interest policy for elected and appointed officials. We'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to continue this item for 2 weeks, as per the city attorney's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Jason Solomon. Motion is to postpone this item for 2 weeks. Amanda Scott.
Thank you. And maybe I missed it, but can the city attorney tell us why we're postponing for 2 weeks?
Well, the short answer, I'm not happy with the form it's in. If you want detailed response, I can give you one, but it's already been a long meeting, so if you want, we can talk about it after. But I just think it can be approved upon before a final version.
So since this is an ordinance, is that
It's a resolution.
resolution, so it won't take 2 readings? That's why you want time to wordsmith it and kind of change it a little bit?
Yeah, I bought into the original concept when we discussed how we would approach it, but now that I look at it, a lot of this stuff's already covered in state law. I think it's a little complicated, so we're going to take a step back. I talked to Carla about it today for a while. We're going to take a step back and maybe take a different approach to it.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for that. I just wanted to understand why we were waiting an additional 2 weeks. Thanks. Yield the floor.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item number 29, which is acknowledge Capital Improvement Programs Committee monthly update for November 2016. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, and it is a long meeting, and the whole reason I pulled this one is because there was from reading the minutes of the capital improvement or the CIP meeting, it looks like there was some meaty discussion that was happened, and I was going to ask for a recap from the people that had attended that meeting because the CIP is a recommending body to the City Council. At this point, I would encourage someone to recommend an acknowledgement, but I'd like to see an item on the next Public Works or Legal and Finance to actually just kind of have this discussion of, because Mayor, I understand from the minutes you even attended this, and it looks like it was a really good discussion that I think the full council could benefit from having. So I'll yield the floor, and I'll just acknowledge tonight if I can have someone else recommend that we bring this discussion item back.
Okay, Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's all right with the chair, I will make that motion to bring this back for further discussion.
Prior to acknowledging, just postpone this item to...
If that works for Amanda, so that we can have some further discussion on it. I'm okay with getting this acknowledged first, so we get that out of the way, and then having further discussion on what her concerns are.
Oh, I don't have any, I just think it was a really good discussion, so if I can, Mayor, if I can, Alderman Nordstrom, if you could make a recommendation to acknowledge this report, but ask for an item on the next
CIP?
No, not CIP, Legal and Finance or Public Works.
Public Works?
To continue this, to have this discussion based, or,
Mayor, if that'll be my motion, is to have this acknowledged and then continue this discussion at the next Public Works Committee meeting.
And legal, just split it
And
in
legal
both.
and finance? Okay.
Okay, so realistically, what we're doing is, your motion is to approve item number 29.
Yes. Or acknowledge it, yes.
Yeah, acknowledge number 29. Was there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Doyle. All in favor of approval of, or acknowledging number 29, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us through the consent calendar. Now on to non-consent items, items 39 through 49. We'll open and close public comment on those items. There's no speaker requests. We'll start with ordinances under number 39, and if I could, I'd like to ask our legal finance chair to read in the ordinances, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is working. Item 39, second reading, ordinance number 6148, an ordinance regarding supplemental appropriation number 5 for 2016, and I recommend approval.
I have a second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Number 40, please.
First reading, ordinance number 6149, an ordinance to revise the calculation for the utility rate relief program by amending sections 13.08.430C and 13.16.360E of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Lisa Modrick, and we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the hour is late and it's going to have a second reading, but I do want to pose a question to our Chief Financial Officer, please, Pauline Sumption.
Okay.
Thank you. Pauline, I believe that the attachment, or maybe you told me directly, but this is being brought forward because of the new software cannot calculate the rate relief for our utility programs. Is that why this is being brought forward?
I believe that was part of it, and honestly, on this one, I think Mr. Tech could help you answer that one more specifically. I know that is the case for number 41.
For number 41, okay. Mayor, may I redirect the question to Mr. Tech?
Yes, please.
Dale, is that the reason, is that the software application needed to be able to handle the calculation of the new relief program?
I believe that's correct, yes, that due to the conversion of the new utility billing software, it has limitations, and based on our current code, it was not able to calculate the relief similarly as Pauline mentioned on the next item.
So was there a comparison done over the last 3 years as far as the way the relief was given to people who applied for the program?
No,
and
I
how
don't.
this new calculation will affect that?
I don't believe that there was a 3-year look back at that, but I believe there was a look at the relief and how it would affect a sample size, if you will, and it was determined to be both revenue neutral and penalty neutral, if you will.
All right. Thank you. I'll review it again before second reading in case I have any other questions.
Okay, the recommendation is for approval of item number 40. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 41, please.
Ordinance number 6150, an ordinance to revise the late fees applied to utility bills by amending section 13.08.470, 13.08510, and 8.08.070 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I recommend approval.
Second.
We have a second by Lisa Modrick, and we'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. And Pauline, I guess on this one, was there a comparison made as far as the revenue stream? Because this one is going to affect the late fees that people pay when they're late on their utility bills. So the revenue stream that gets in there, with this change to a percentage rather than a flat rate?
Yes, it would be a flat 6.5% versus the 1.5 or $5. Again, they try to make sure that it was close to revenue neutral as possible. While there's may be some larger accounts that will see a higher late fee.
Well, I guess I was thinking along the other lines of this being a revenue stream for the city and if it was going to be significant. And from what I'm hearing you say, it's not going to be significant and may give some relief to people who come into hard times trying to pay their utility bills. This is a better format.
Yes, right now it's a flat $5 or 1.5%, whichever is greater. And so there are some people that have a fairly small utility bill because they only have one utility. And the $5 in comparison on a percentage basis seems kind of extreme.
So this will kind of average or give some relief in that case as well.
Correct.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Okay, item 41, the motion's for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item 42, please.
First reading ordinance number 6151, an ordinance to repeal the rebate program for appliance and fixture installation by deleting section 13.08.495 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, and I recommend approval.
Okay, we have a second by Lisa Modrick. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there a rationale for why we're repealing this rebate?
We'll go to Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The rebate program was initially set up with some funding set aside, a limiting amount. As I understand it, that money has been rebated a long time ago. We've surpassed that. In addition to that, we've seen the number of rebate applications dramatically decrease. So based on the lack of funding and the lack of participation in the program, we're recommending that it goes away.
Thank you. I'll yield.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Number 43 under Public Works Committee, and we'll go to Charity Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 43 is listed as funding recommendations for the construction improvements of Elm Avenue from its current southern terminus near Fieldview Drive for approximately 800 feet. This was sent to council without recommendation from Public Works. I was not present at Public Works. However, looking at the agenda summary, the revised CIP plan was already approved, so I'm kind of curious or looking for direction on how this needs to transpire tonight. For somebody, Mayor.
Is there a
gets the
staff
point.
recommendation, or we'll go to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion that we that we approve this with the staff's recommendations on the item. So.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Charity Doyle for approval. Okay, we have a motion for approval on the floor for item 43. Back to
No.
we'll go to Amanda Scott. Or
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to let Mr. Estes go in there, but then he removed himself from queue.
No, I didn't mean to.
Oh, good. I'll let Mr. Estes go first.
Okay, Brad Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things I'd brought up at, I'm going to go ahead and support this, but one of the things I'd brought up at the Public Works meeting, and I brought up at the council meeting when this first brought up was that several of the council people, I mean, this is a project that needs to get done, and several council people said, by God, they didn't want any of their projects to be in their ward to get moved back in the CIP because of this one. And at that meeting, I'd recommended that perhaps maybe a TIF financing would be an option. I mean, it's not the best deal, but you know, and I was, but the motion went for it to go back to staff to come up with a plan, not using a TIF, which left CIP the only option. So, I mean, that's just it. And, you know, and if you do, I look at a project like this, we're gonna put a road in, and that road is going to spur some development, which could pay off a TIF. Yeah, you got paperwork, you gotta borrow money, you have interest. Perhaps if it's our TIF, we could use our own reserves and pay ourselves interest. But it opens up options. We're always here, you know, looking for option. I mean, when we're talking about vision funding, we're talking about wanting more money for infrastructure. So if CIP is our only deal, then we just lose options, because we may have a situation where we're going to have a road like this where we forgive a warp and not do an assessment deal, where it's already developed and there is no opportunity for growth, and it totally leaves tax increment financing out of the way. So I'm just trying to remind everybody that under this particular circumstance, there is some development that will occur as a result of this, and TIF financing could have been a possibility. And that's all. I'll support it. But I think it was my comments that caused this to come to council without recommendation. But I'll yield, Mr. Mayor.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. And may I ask Mr. Dale Tech a question, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So Dale, when this came through the CIP committee, and as Alderman Estes indicated that the potential was there to have to shuffle around some projects, in looking at this, I can't really tell if anything was shuffled. Can you give a summary as far as how money was found in the CIP fund to all of a sudden fund this?
Everything highlighted in yellow that you'll see in the outlying years of the CIP that was approved at the committee and just previously on another item were projects that the funding was moved. So there's a number of them, at least a half dozen projects were shuffled around. Most of them were slid a year or two. I think one or more may have slid completely off the plan just to be able to fit this project in for 2017.
So this project is estimated to be at, is that 600, my eyes are getting old, $660,000?
For street funding, yes. And then there's some associated utility funding that goes along with that. That would come out of the utility CIP funds, and those projects were shifted as well.
Is there a possibility, and this question may be more appropriate for the finance director, but is there a possibility that since the CIP fund is funded in 2016 and 2017 through that sales tax, that there may be additional undesignated cash at the end of this year?
When we were discussing this at CIP, it was brought up because there were two different projects that were added, one of which was the Elm Avenue project. The other one, I believe, was the Deadwood Avenue project to coincide with the county. At the time, I told them that we had enough money in undesignated cash currently to fund one of those out of undesignated cash, but not both of those.
Okay, thank you. I yield the floor.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we did have extensive conversation about this at CIP and the reshuffling that the Public Works Director, Dale Tech, pointed out here. And during that lengthy conversation, we were able to come up with some additional funding so we could get the Elm Street project underway through CIP. And that's why I wasn't at Public Works. That's why I wasn't in favor of doing this through a TIF project, because we could do that realignment. And then with that all said, is that the staff did a lot of work to put this together in realigning all of this so that we could come up with this Elm Street project. So it wasn't just haphazardly put together. They spent a lot of time putting this together. So that's another reason why I'm supporting their recommendation, is so we can go along with this. Get this project started and underway and getting rid of another warp.
Motion on the floor is for approval of item 43. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to Legal Finance Committee items. We'll go back to John Roberts for item 44.
Thank you, Mayor. Authorize Mayor and Finance Officer to sign contract for construction of public improvements through Private Developer Tax Increment District Number 78 between Yasmin Dream LLC and the City of Rapid City. And I recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The second's by Lisa Modrick. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for the Finance Officer, Pauline Sumption, please.
Yes.
Pauline, if we could go without supporting this tax increment district, and I'm not saying that I'm going to be opposing this, but is there a possibility that this district could be paid off in time or on time without this additional amendment?
This one, for clarification, is not an amendment. This is just the developer agreement with the developer for the Orchard Meadows TID that was approved not that long ago.
Very good. Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval of item 44. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Oh. 2 noes. Motion passes with 2 noes, Estes and Laurenti. Okay, item number 45, please.
Discussion on revised 2016 City Council Mission and Vision Statement. And this was continued from November 21st. And I am going to recommend that we approve it.
Second. Okay, we have a motion for approval and a second by Jerry Wright. Go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask for a substitute motion that we continue it until the next council meeting. We've had no time to talk or email, or I have thoughts on it, but I don't want to rush this. There's no reason to rush it.
Okay, we
I
have
can get a second.
Substitute motion to put it off for 2 weeks till the next council meeting, and second by Charity Doyle. We'll go to Jerry Wright.
I just want to make the point that there were 6 members of the council that met on this issue, and there was a lot of work done on this, and I think that this is our product, and I know there were some comments about we should be working up a mission and vision for the city, and we kind of have in our comprehensive plan, excuse me. But this is our statement. This is what is going to guide us. And I think that the committee or group that worked together on this worked very hard, and we were down to debating words and how it was said. But I think it's a good tool for us to use as we proceed in our process. And certainly I think it could be updated when the new council comes on in July. But I think as it's written, I like it. And I thank all persons that were involved, and I support it as written. If you delay it 2 weeks, I could care less, but it's a good document.
Okay. Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. It was discovered by Alderman Nordstrom, I believe, the words in stone, and that is as you're exiting the parking lot, and it needs more light, it needs to have some cleanup, but it was a great mission statement that obviously hasn't been used in years, and it really puts a little more emphasis on the mission that we currently have worked on as a committee, and just to read that was working together to improve, protect, and enrich our community, and it was a lot of what we had discussed during our working session. So if we do move this forward, that's fine, but I would like to see a little more enhancement in using what's already in stone. It's a good statement. It's a good mission.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification on that written in stone point is that it's been out there for a number of years. It was authored by people from previous councils and even a previous mayor, I'm going to say about 3 or 4 mayors ago when that got established. There is going to be, just to answer Alderwoman's Modrick's concern about the enhancement of that area, there is some plans being put in place to get that addressed. There's even some research being conducted when exactly that was put up, but it was under previous employees that were involved with that installation, and so I'm still waiting on to hear when that was exactly installed. So more work to be continued, and I appreciate the council's consideration for delaying this 2 weeks. I had another medical situation come up, so I was not able to attend that work session. So if there is an opportunity to have that further discussion, I'd like to participate. Thank you.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just trying to listen with audience eyes, and Alderwoman Modrick spoke and Alderman Nordstrom spoke, and you're talking about written in stone, but no one described what stone you're referring to. So if either one of you would like to explain what stone and what written in stone in the area, so the public is aware of what you two are talking about, that'd be great.
Well, let's go to Richie Nordstrom, since he's the one that took the picture and started all this.
Be happy to, Mayor. Be happy to. If not, everybody is not aware of where this monument sign is located at. It is on the west side of the parking lot. And as you're entering the parking lot from the 6th Street side, you will see the face of that sign. And on the back side of that is where what Alderwoman Modrick recited, and I recited that a couple of meetings ago, and what was quoted on there. And I do want to acknowledge that Kay Rippentrop, who was the mayor, secretary in those previous mayors, she's the one that came up with that mission statement, if you want to call it that. And so it's been up there for a long time. And if there's anything else I can address on that, I'd be happy to add any other comments.
Okay, no, I think everybody's good. Let's, I can feel it. So there's a substitute motion to put this off for 2 weeks. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're putting it off for 2 weeks. Now on to item 46, Community Planning and Development Services items. A request by Spurlick Consulting Incorporated for DOIC LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lot 21 of Block 4 of Autumn Hills subdivision, generally described as being located at the current northern terminus of Chalkstone Drive. The recommendation was to approve with stipulations.
So moved.
And we have, I think, a motion by John Roberts and a second by Jerry Wright for approval. All in favor of that approval, say yes. Aye. Okay, say aye. Those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Item number 47, request by Spurlick Consulting for Dakota Land and Cattle Company, LLC, for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed track B1 and track B2 of the ranch at Black Gap, generally described as being located south of the intersection of Ambush Road and Wild Horse Court. The recommendation was to approve with stipulations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Wright. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 48, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Legacy Land Company for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 15 of Block 1 and lots 1 through 38 of Block 2 of Robbinsdale Heights subdivision, generally described as being located between Hanover Drive and Kentucky Lane, south of East Minnesota Street. The recommendation is to approve with stipulations.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Laurenti and second by Wright. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Okay, now that takes us down to Public hearing items, items 50 through 55. There are no speaker requests there, so we'll skip the public hearing. We'll go on to consent public hearing items 50 through 55. Would council like to remove any of these items, or if not, can I have a motion to approve?
50 through 55.
Okay, we have a motion to approve these items by Estes, second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to item 56, the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Officer Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $7,815,082.35.
Move to approve.
Roberts made the motion, Laurenti seconded. All in favor of approval, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Second.
Okay, Solomon makes a motion to adjourn. Roberts seconds. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're adjourned.
And it's only 10 o'clock.